So thank you all for attending our development activities meeting with the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. My name is Caitlin Badgen. I am the Senior Manager of Economic Development for the PDP. The PDP has been a registered community organization for about 1.5 years now. And the purpose of these public meetings is to give stakeholders in the downtown community a chance to hear about your projects at an early stage of development and to provide feedback. So we have Stephanie Joy Everett and Derek Dauphin with the City of Pittsburgh Department of City Planning with us. They are helping the PDP host this RCO meeting. So I am going to hand it over to Stephanie to talk about some of the logistics with the meeting. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Joy. I'm your moderator this evening. So my goal is to help facilitate the Q&A process. Basically, for any attendees, the Q&A tool is enabled for you to ask questions, and I'll read those questions, and then the applicant will answer. And I'll do my best to type their response into the answer field. But if you would like to ask the question, you can also use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and then I'll unmute the attendee in the order that the request was received. And for the voice call-in that we have, if you press *9, that will raise your hand, and then I will announce the last 4 digits of your phone number and unmute you. If there's any technical problems, feel free to put that in the chat feature. We are recording this meeting, and we do have a voice call-in, so any presenters, I recommend that you visually or verbally describe anything you're visually showing through your presentation. And Derek, I'm handing it to you.
All right, hi everyone. So my name is Derek Dauphin. I'm the neighborhood planner for downtown, uptown, the Hill District in Oakland. I'm gonna just provide a little bit of background on what these meetings are for people who haven't been at them before. Development activities meetings are required through our Registered Community Organizations program, which basically certifies community organizations that meet certain standards. And one of the things that results in is for projects that meet certain thresholds in their area, then it creates a requirement for this public meeting. There are lots of different ways that projects get here. We definitely identified a number of them in the screen here. A lot of times it has to do with you're going to a zoning board or planning commission or other kind of formal commission. The intent of having these meetings is that it allows community stakeholders an opportunity to learn about the projects when they're at a relatively early stage in the permitting process. As you've already noted, the RCO for downtown is a Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. It's been an RCO for over 1 year now, so one of our earlier RCOs. After this sort of brief introduction, my main role is just to write down what you all say. So I create a sort of a standard report, and that report includes a summary of what's presented, some relevant details about the meeting itself, and then all the questions that you ask and all the answers that are provided. They are neutral. There is no recommendation made in this report. There is no summary. There is no sort of position that's taken in the report. So if there is a project that you have strong feelings about and you want to testify, we really do recommend that you do that. This report will be a neutral telling, and the Board or Commission will get that so they can understand what happened at this meeting. And I think that's the end, so that's my last slide. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it back over to Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks, Stephanie Joy and Derek, I appreciate that. So we have 4 projects today to go over. We're gonna start with the first project on the agenda here. It is the Allegheny building, and they will be presenting a proposed residential conversion of that building. So I'm gonna hand it over to Strata to walk us through the project, and then we will take Q&A after his presentation.
Thanks, Caitlin. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, please,
Okay.
if you could do that.
And for any of the presenters, I do have a backup of your presentation in case there's any technical issues.
I might need that backup because
Sure,
I might have to restart it in order to share, it says.
sure. One
So if you don't mind
second.
sharing, then I'll, yeah.
Sure.
Hi, this is Derek again. I'm going to use this little pause just to remind all the applicants that you do need to state what approvals you're seeking. So what commission, what board are you going to get your approvals? It's your first hearing that you're going to. So you may be going to ZBA and then Planning Commission. In that case, ZBA would be the first hearing that you're going to have. So please state that. If you have a hearing date, please state that too, but we understand that most projects don't at this stage. So thank you.
Thanks.
Derek, I'm sorry, Ian. Derek, this is Kevin McKeegan. I'm going to be helping Ian with the presentation tonight. I know some of the people or in the meeting rather, but for those who don't know me, I'm an attorney with Meyer, Unkovic, and Scott, and we represent the applicant. And in answer to that question, Derek, this project requires a conditional use, which starts with a recommendation from the Planning Commission and then goes to City Council for final approval. It will also need a PDP approval, which comes from the Planning Commission and which we've asked be considered simultaneously with their recommendation on the conditional use. We do not have a hearing date set yet. We have filed a zoning development review application, which is under review at the staff level. And we're hoping after this meeting and after that staff review is complete, that we might be in the queue for a Planning Commission presentation later this year, or certainly no later than early in 2021.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. So yeah, this as Kevin was saying, this presentation encompasses our proposal for the conversion of the Allegheny building. So this presentation will look at both the plans for the conversion of this 19-story existing office building to multifamily residential up to 190 total dwelling units. And also we'll talk about the transfer of development rights for up to 87 dwelling units from 201 Stanwyck Street to 429 Forbes Avenue. And you can see on this slide at the bottom is a plan of downtown showing both of those sites where they're located, as well as on the right side the elevation view of 429 Forbes, also known as the Allegheny building, from the Forbes Avenue facade. It's a historic structure built in 1908, designed by Daniel Burnham. Materials are brick and terracotta in classic Beaux-Arts style. So you can go to the next slide, please. So here's a site plan showing in gray the property, and then the boundary sites at the south Forbes Avenue, to the west Cherry Way, to the east Script Way, and then to the north. This plan level, it's the loading dock access and a driveway, but for most of the building above, from the second floor up till the 11th floor, I believe, is what's known as the Macy's building. Within the first floor is basically a lobby. Well, let me back up. There's also an exterior pedestrian passageway, which is the only pedestrian access through Cherry Way that's on our site. It's a covered pedestrian access way that's fully exterior. There's two entrances to the building on Forbes Avenue. Midway on the block is a historic entrance, and closer to Script Way is a newer existing accessible entrance with a revolving door. And all of this is existing to remain. We have no plans of changing any of that. We have no plans for any site work at all. There's the only proposed change that would kind of it wouldn't affect the site, but it's on the first floor, reinstating the exit on Script Way as a means of egress from the building, which is required by code. There's also, I should say, there's no plans for any exterior work besides limited window replacement. Within the first floor of the building is the existing Apollo Cafe, which is also proposed to remain in its place with no changes. There's limited plans for the lobby, adding a few required rooms like a package and mail room, fire command room, and then in the basement we would add a bike room. Everything else is existing to remain. And then if you go to the next slide, this is shows a typical floor, and so it's the first floor that you just saw, and then it's basically 18 stories of this, it's a U-shaped building with a light well in the center. Basically, we're going to keep the core as it is, stair on each end, freight elevator, and 3 passenger elevators and some mechanical spaces. Double loaded corridor with units all around. There's 10 units per floor, 9 of which are 1-bedroom apartments and 1 2-bedroom apartment on the southwest corner. The units are about 750, 800 square feet a piece, typically. And next slide, please. Here's a sustainability summary. The most sustainable thing is that it's an existing historic building that we're reusing. We're also, all the plumbing fixtures will be water conserving low flow fixtures, and all light fixtures will be efficient LED. Next slide, please. For the construction management plan, all loading will be through the existing script way. Dumpsters will be placed within the footprint of the building in the existing loading dock area. No street closures are planned, and the construction duration is expected to be 16 to 18 months. And in terms of accessibility, the building will be fully accessible as required by code, and new accessible units will be added as required by code as well. And then I'll ask Kevin to jump in at this part.
Okay, thank you, Ian. To summarize what we're going to be requesting of the Planning Commission and City Council, the number of units per lot downtown is fixed by a calculation of 110 square feet per unit. Right now, at its size, 429 Forbes Avenue could accommodate up to 103 dwelling units. To make the project work, the owner would like to get that number up to at least 190. And in order to do that, we are using a provision in the zoning code, which allows for downtown properties only, and I should say it applies only downtown, for property owners to transfer rights for development relating to either floor area ratio or the number of units in a building between properties. We're not seeking any change in floor area ratio here. As Ian indicated, the building is remaining as is. But what we are going to be doing is sending, in effect, from 201 Stanwyck Street, which is owned by a related entity, 87 units to 429 Forbes Avenue. At the end of the day, 201 Stanwyck Street will still have a theoretical excess of units. If you do the calculation for 201 Stanwyck Street, it would be entitled to have 275 dwelling units, and currently there's 158 there. But by doing this transfer, we're going to be getting the requisite number of units over to 429 Forbes Avenue. This is a conditional use request. It is not a variance. It is not a change in zoning classification. So really the Planning Commission's role is to make a recommendation to City Council, and then City Council in turn votes on that request. The legal standard for granting a conditional use is similar to a special exception in that it's treated as a form of permitted use, but subject to a public process, so that if there are peculiar adverse consequences coming out of the request, the public has a right to weigh in. and the approving body has a right to impose appropriate conditions. So I think we can go to the next slide just to give a little bit more detail on the calculations. So this is an aerial view of the 201 Stanwyck Street building. This is formerly, I think 10 or 11 years ago, it was known as the Verizon building. As I indicated, an affiliate of the owner of 429 Forbes Avenue, another PMC entity, acquired this building, converted it to apartments. There's also a charter school, charter high school located in this building. That conversion was successful and was completed back in the 2011-2012 timeframe. So next slide, please. Again, some views of 429 Forbes Avenue. I think Ian has explained pretty succinctly this building. It does go back to 1908. It was actually originally constructed, as we found out in doing some rather complicated title work, as an annex to the Frick building. And for many years, it was considered an annex to the Frick building. The prior owner, the immediately prior owner, tried to reconfigure it for office space, but really wasn't able to make a go of that. And at this point, except for the Apollo Cafe, which, as Ian indicated, is going to be continuing as a tenant, the building is vacant. So we're not taking away any existing occupants from the building. It's been vacated. Next slide, please. So this is what the assessor says for 201 Stanwyck Street. And one thing I'd like to point out here is that the assessor says the lot area is 1.49 acres. That is incorrect. As a matter of fact, the lot size, we pulled up an old survey, is closer to 30 or 40,000 square feet. The code is a bit unclear as to what you're supposed to use for determining lot size, but we've run all our calculations based on the surveyed lot size. So that's the smaller number, and that's how we got to the 275 available at Stanwyck Street. Next slide, please. So this is the assessor information for 429 Forbes Avenue, which does correspond to the survey we had done of the property. You'll see that the lot area is a little more than 11,000 square feet, which is how we calculated the 103 units by right at this building that we'll be adding to. Next slide. So there's the Stanwyck Street survey. You can sort of make out the 30,000 square foot figure in the lower right-hand corner. Next slide. And there's the Forbes Avenue survey, which we've already gone over. And what else do we have to talk about? So I think that's our last slide. And at this point, I think we'd be happy to answer any questions.
As a reminder, feel free to raise your hand if you have a question or put that in the Q&A feature. I'm going to pass it to you, Caitlin, and see if PDP wants to start us off with any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin and Ian, both for going over this project and for explaining the transfer of development rights in such clear detail. We do really appreciate that. I think from the PDP standpoint, we're really happy to see some new life breathed into this building. I mean, especially since it has not been heavily occupied in the past several years. I do think that a conversion of this building to residential does make sense. And, it does make me really happy to see too that the ownership is keeping the Apollo Cafe in the first floor as well too. So that's really it from me. If there's anyone else that has questions, please let us know.
I don't see any questions, but we'll give it another minute or so for folks to raise their hand.
Okay, well, hearing no further questions, I think it makes sense to move on to the next project.
All right, very good. We appreciate everyone's attention tonight. Look forward to continuing to work with you. And I imagine through Caitlin, Derek, and others at the planning department, we'll keep everybody posted as to the actual schedule for hearings.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to say goodnight. Good luck for the rest of the meeting.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Hey. Is next up the 100 Stanwix project?
Yes, 100 Stanwix project is next up on the list, and we can turn it over to Eckert Siemens and Smart Signs to walk us through that project. So you are
Wonderful.
welcome to share your screen.
Thank you. Thanks. This is Sandy Garfinkel from Eckert Siemens. With me is my colleague Jamie and Ferreira, also from Eckert Siemens, and Brandon Meyer from Smart Signs. So you've got, let's see.
I can see your screen. It looks great.
Okay, good. I'm not the one sharing right now, so somebody's doing a good job here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I share my screen.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
Hey, Brandon. Okay, great. So just to quickly introduce, this is we're seeking approval ultimately for a small sign on a commercial building downtown on 100 Stanwix Street. It'll be an electronic non-advertising sign on the side of the building. And I think the slide that's under here.
1 second.
Okay.
Technical difficulties.
Well, that's fine. While you're doing that, I'll just say we anticipate applying for 2 to 3 variances. One will be a variance to permit the electronic non-advertising sign in the Golden Triangle C district where this building is located. And then there will be variances relating to the changeable copy area of the sign. There's an ordinance limiting the changeable copy area to 50%. The sign is very small, 5 by 10. So we'll be looking to allow the entire sign face to be changeable copy area. And the sign will be located on the side of the building instead of in the facade area. So we'll be asking for a variance for that as well. And so this screen shows you the location of the building. You see this, there's a parking lot next to it where the sign will be. It's along Stanwix Street. With that, I would like to turn it over to Brandon to describe the sign project in more detail and tell you how it's going to be done. So that's a view of the front of the building, I believe, facing Stanwix. And this is looking at Stanwix is going towards the Mon River, 1st and 2nd Avenue. The building is directly in front, and there's a little red rectangle that shows where the sign will be placed on the upper part of the building, the upper corner. Okay. Next, Brandon. Okay, Brandon, you want to take it from here?
I'll take it from here. Thank you, Sandy. My name is Brandon Meyer, owner of Smart Signs. I've been in the sign industry for over 20 years, and within the last 7 years, our company has strictly focused on the outdoor electronic message centers that's being proposed here. We've worked with all manufacturers. We currently are the region's largest Cirrus LED systems dealer. We're very familiar with this product and have had great success with it in providing many churches and businesses, as well as local government organizations. And we've recently actually started putting these up for a lot of communities. as well as community message centers. So that's a little bit of my background and expertise. If I could just go over what we're proposing here for Team Scotty. So this is the side of the building where the sign will be installed. It'll be a fixed flush mount to the building as shown here. The sign will only project off the building about 4 inches, as you can see here in this diagram. So not a very large projection. This product is actually one of the lower profile electronic message centers available on the market today at only 4 inches deep. The overall sign dimensions are 5 foot high by 10 foot wide, and it will be mounted 14 foot above grade on the side of the building. Let me jump back to this. So good representation there to scale with the 6 foot tall gentleman standing there. The attachment method will just be 3/8 diameter fasteners directly into the EIFS stucco on the building, with through bolts going all the way through, so it'll be safely mounted following the engineer's specifications. The sign can be programmed to display only static text, images, and graphics in accordance with the city's requirements, so that it'll be in compliance. It can be programmed so that these text, images, and graphics will not change more than once every 30 seconds, again following the regulations. The sign can be programmed so that the twirl time between each text or image on the display will not exceed 25 hundredths of a second, and the luminance can be set so that it will not exceed the 2,000 nits requirement during the daylight hours, as well as the 250 nits in nighttime, all other hours outside of the daytime. In terms of the plan for the sign usage, the building currently has 2 tenants in it. So the plan is for the messaging to rotate the display of those tenant names, business names, or logos in a rotation, following those requirements that I just read. I believe that's it. I'll turn it back over to Sandy.
Great. Well, thanks, Brandon. I forgot to mention this. I said we would be applying for variances. I described them. We haven't applied yet. We don't have a hearing date yet. We are trying to finish up the basic zoning plan review process. We're working with city planning on that. We are providing them with a few pieces of information that they've asked for. And so we're not scheduled for anything at this time, but that's the plan, to apply for that set of variances. I think at this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions that anyone may have about the project.
Caitlin, I'll pass it to you first and give our attendee the opportunity to put their question in the chat or raise their hand. Press *9 to raise your hand.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sandy and Brandon. No questions for me. I think that was a really thorough review of the sign that's proposed. So yeah, I'll open it up to anyone else who has questions to raise their hand.
No questions.
Okay, well, we can move on, since there are no further questions, to our third project on the agenda for this evening. So our next project is going to be the Magan building. Day 3 Design is going to walk us through their project for that building.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, Caitlin.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Caitlin, I'll share my screen if that's okay.
That's
Sounds
perfect.
great.
Thank you. That. Okay, is that coming up okay for you folks?
Yep, looks good.
Wonderful. Okay, great, thanks. So today we're coming back before the PDP in relation to the same subject matter that we presented around about the same time last year, but it's this time it's specific to replacing the windows on the Liberty Avenue elevation of our building, of which we presented last year and went before the HRC and received approval from them. But reason being, and I'll scroll down to our introduction, is that we have a design development with our replacement windows that front Liberty Ave, and it's because it deviates from what we set forth, like I said, in October last year, and where we had advised that we would be replacing just the window sash frames with wood to ensure that, pardon me, that the sash frames and styles would, pardon me, my screen is blocked on I'm just going to reduce that. There we go. Thank you. That the sash frames and styles have the same style width and rail height and the attendant sightline. And it's still important to note that we're only proposing to replace the window frames, and that the window main frames, that being the jambs, the sills, the mullions and the transoms, they all remain, whereas essentially we're plugging a new vent. So again, the design development is that if the sash frames were replaced in wood, the frame styles and rails would need to approximately more than double their existing width and height, respectively, to accommodate the much heavier double glazed glass assembly and the existing functionality. So that would result in modifying the sightline because the styles would be wider and the rails would be taller. And again, it's important to note that we're only replacing the sash frames, and the styles and rails, but with an historic extrusion in aluminum from Cornier. And let's note that the aluminum extrusion includes an exterior putty grid that ensures that the exterior window appearance is retained. And that the Cornier aluminum extrusion can accommodate the heavier insulated glazing assembly while matching the existing width and height of the existing sash frame styles and rails. So in summary, what we propose to do is replace in an aluminum to still match so that we achieve the same sight lines, but not in wood. And we'll get to those reasons in a minute. And really looking at the existing conditions, here we have the Liberty Avenue elevation of the McGinn building. And as we've said, if I put my cursor over just this, is this the 4th floor? It's the window vents that we propose to replace with an aluminum chassis, and that the main frame mullions and transoms, they all remain. So sort of getting into, what we've just said, last October, we submitted the proposal of replacement sash frames with wood, and really just to update today, the revision is the same principle, but in aluminum. And here we've sort of just elaborated on what the replacement would be, and again to note that it's the window main frames will remain, and that it's a new aluminum sash window to match the existing sash frame profiles. And here we've advised that the existing window frame, the style is 2 3/8, and the new style in a historic profile from Cornier is 2 7/16. So there you'll see where, you know, we're within a 1/16 of an inch of the existing sight line. And then to look at the bottom rail of a fixed vent, the existing is 3 3/4 inches tall, and the new bottom rail is 3 7/16. So we're within 5/16 of an inch, you know, of matching the, pardon me, matching the existing vent bottom rail. And again, to note that this historic profile is complete with the putty grid. There's sort of two components to this. The second component is we have an option. And what we would like to do is, these are all fixed vents, but this top left, yeah, I'd say like top left and top right, we would like to maintain some operability for those windows, for that left and right transom window, and that would be on floors 2 through 8, is to have an operable window, and just those vents. Bear in mind, these vents are so big here that they can no longer be operable with such a heavy double glazed, thermally efficient glazing assembly. There is one aspect to that where we would be required to provide a wider, you know, window assembly, because it's not just a fixed vent, but it's a vent in a frame, and that means that the stiles would be 3 and 15/16 of an inch wide, whereas the below windows, the stile width would be 2 7/16 of an inch. So it's roughly 1.5 inches wider, and that would have a small effect on the sight line if you were to look at the building up through here. But again, you know, it's roughly about 1 inch difference. So it's something that we want to put out there and get some feedback. Look, I think we table this option because, you know, allowing this would, as I've stated, would achieve, you know, some occupant quality of life via natural ventilation, you know, and as a green building element. And we're really interested in maintaining the historic aesthetics of this building, but know that, you know, as this building enters its next, you know, service as a residential building, I think it's really, well, I think, and speaking on behalf of everybody, it's very important that we provide some operable window functionality. And really, this center transom is just so long; it's 110 inches long, and it's just not possible to provide some opening and closing functionality. Whereas these left and right transoms, you know, we have an opportunity to maintain opening and closing ability, and I think that has a, well, speaking on behalf of people that will want to live in this building, I think it's a big benefit that we can offer that, you know, we can provide some opening and closing windows on this elevation. And so moving on to, I believe the final page, we've just looked at the advantages of using aluminum sash frames versus wood sash frames, and we've sort of laid out that aluminum is much more durable and it isn't susceptible to deterioration when preventative maintenance is often deferred on these very tall buildings that are difficult to get up there and paint windows if they were wood. We can achieve a custom color as what was proposed and submitted to the HRC. So we can still maintain a custom color. You know, and then I think another big add is that they're energy efficient through their insulated glass, and the aluminum chassis is thermally broken. So it's really just bringing technology to the front of the building. And then finally, just to wrap up, to look at what precedence is, you know, in the immediate area, and having a look at what was submitted recently for the building next door at the old Army surplus building. They submitted for aluminum replacement windows, and it went before the HRC, and we can see a certificate was granted for that. And then 2 buildings down from us on Liberty, pardon me, they incorporate front aluminum windows. Again, important to note that they were sensible and in adopting a historic profile, so that the sight lines are consistent, and they're still there in narrow profile style and rail. And then again recently at 209 9th and 800 Penn, both of those windows, pardon me, but the windows in those buildings were replaced with a Cornair aluminum window that incorporated a historic profile, and it went before the HRC and was approved. So that's it, folks. I think, unless I've got one more slide. This is the rear of the building, but there's no change to it. It's just as submitted to the community and approved by the Historic Review Commission. So that's it. In summary, I think just going back to what we submitted last year was in wood. We proposed to essentially do the same thing, but in an aluminum chassis that accommodates a heavier glass assembly while maintaining very, very similar sight lines. And thank you for your time today, and I would hand it back over to the moderators.
Thanks, Matt. Caitlin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks guys. I appreciate walking us through the project, and we are familiar with this project from you had the presentation last year, as you mentioned. I think what you guys are proposing makes sense in order to have the units be functional for residents, and we're also familiar with the examples that you outlined at the end about there is a precedent for doing similar window replacements in the area. My part of the presentation did cut out. I lost connectivity for a minute there, so apologies if you already went over this, but you are looking to go to HRC in November. Was that correct?
That's right.
Great. And this is somewhat unrelated to the windows, but have you guys began construction on the interior build at all for this project?
We have.
Yeah. And then how long are you guys anticipating the window replacement to take once received approval from HRC?
Not long, just a construction duration of probably 10 days.
Yeah.
Under the building permit that we have in place for construction.
Great. All right, well, that's all from me. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to raise your hand. Okay,
and as a reminder,
go ahead.
As a reminder, we are recording this for any residents or businesses that are not in attendance. They can view this on PDP's website.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think we can move to our last but surely not least project for this evening. The last project will be exterior improvements at 5th Avenue Place in downtown. So I will hand it over to AE7 and anyone from Highmark who would like to go over this project. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Bucco. I am architect with AE7. I am working on sharing my screen. There we go. On our team, I have Chris Schuley is also on the call, and he is also from AE7. We've been working with Highmark on this project probably for about a year and a half now, and I'll let Highmark team introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Beth Coker with Highmark. I work in the corporate real estate department.
Okay.
And this is Aaron Bilger from the Corporate Communications Department at Highmark.
Eric Huber from Government Affairs.
Okay. I think that's our team. So we have a representation from both the architectural design team as well as the ownership team. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. So Highmark, we have been working with Highmark to make some renovations to their tower, Fifth Avenue Place. As I'm sure most of you know, that Fifth Avenue Place is the corporate headquarters of Highmark. And then in there is also a retail and public space on the in the podium level of the tower. The renovation, the goals of renovation is to renovate the exterior facades and the main entrances, creating a new corporate entrance at the Stanwick Street entrance, and a new entrance at the ground floor retail. As well as adding an elevated terrace on the corner of Stanwicks and Penn Avenue to create a new terrace for restaurant access. The locations in site plan, this is the tower, Liberty Avenue, meeting Stanwick Street and Penn Avenue. So essentially the three main corners of the building. In addition to that work, we'll also be doing some minor modifications to updating the entrance doors and storefronts to where there is retail access directly from the street level. And those occur at Penn Avenue, as well as the current PNC entrance off of Liberty. The idea of the renovation is to create an improvement in experience from the curb all the way out to the facade, so that that experience will occur at the pedestrian level. And so in doing so, it will open up these facades, connect to the pedestrian, engage and reach out to the public realm overall. And also creating a more open and inviting arrival to the retail and to the public space in doing so. I'm going to jump to the landscape plan. In doing so, we'll be making improvements to the sidewalk area from the curb all the way to the facade with new paving, and again, sort of creating that entrance experience at the Stanwicks entrance, as well as on the corner going at Fifth Avenue and Liberty, and then again, the elevated terrace. The goal is to maintain the existing trees as best we can, and not disturb them with the ones that are particularly established and doing well. And then also looking at the conditions of some of the existing ones and how we can perhaps replant new ones if they're sort of not in good health, and also improving the existing planting beds that are there. The intent is to leave the existing planting beds and just make the improvements at these areas where you see the dark gray paving from a landscape perspective. Regarding the open urban space, there is a large amount of open urban space that is open to the public. Part of the project is to add additional benches and some seating on these new paving areas at these entrances to again activate these corners and provide a welcoming nice space for the public. The restaurant terrace will be specific to the restaurant. As most of you know, the Cafe Amante used to be on the second floor of this building, and they has been closed for quite some time, and there hasn't been a restaurant amenity in the building. And so what our plan is to bring that restaurant amenity down to the ground floor. And so this way they can have that immediate access to the restaurant terrace. And then this way our goal is to really activate that corner where right now that plaza doesn't have the program available to it to activate that. So that would be a nice experience there to bring that restaurant down and create that new corner. And in the process of doing that with the raised terrace, there will also be benches and planting and enhancing the experience on the perimeter of that terrace as well for the public realm. And then again, the space surrounding the property and the tower will also be space open to the public realm. For the Stanwyck Street entrance, this is the current conditions. Our intent is to remove the heavy archway that blocks a lot of the light in the sort of the glass facade, and with the improvements, and then also just as a side note, the awnings have already been removed to sort of try to open up these facades as well throughout the building tower. And then the new facade, the idea is to, there are currently deficiencies in the performance of the building. And so if we can improve the performance of the building and address building envelope deficiencies with performance glass and updating mechanical systems as part of this project as well. And in doing so, there'll be a louver system that will be across the upper areas where there is the office spaces. And then this way that will help to cut down on the west facing, on the west direction sun, and decrease the heat gain on this facade. Also replacing new revolving doors and new swing doors with vestibules, again, to address the performance issues of these lobbies and entrances. Here is a rendering of that intended experience. So again, new curtain wall, lightening up these columns, really opening up the experience, drawing the public in, and having it be a welcoming, inviting facade, as well as having a new wrap around the perimeter of the column to just tie together the whole experience. We'll also be following well principles with a lot of daylight and green walls, to name a few. Again, addressing the well principles, something that Highmark is taking a position on to sort of, it is relevant to obviously their industry and what they do. And so to be able to introduce well principles is a priority to them as well. For the Liberty Avenue entrance, again, same ideas in terms of opening up the facade. In this case, we have great views coming down from Fifth Avenue, and to be able to open up the inside of that building and out to the public realm. And similar principles in terms of lightening the columns, new glass curtain walls, revolving doors that perform well as vestibules at the swing doors. We're carrying that concept around Fifth Avenue as well, and replacing the curtain wall glass systems on those windows as well. And here's a rendering of that with our materiality. And again, it's all the focus on the entrances and just opening up the building and making that connection. For the corner of Stanwyck and Penn Avenue, where we're creating that elevated terrace, as we mentioned before, there's not much program here in terms of opportunities to activate this corner. There is the connection here and along Penn Avenue. As we continue down, there's a whole host of restaurants, and then we get down to the cultural district. And the ability to be able to pull that experience all the way down and continuing it all the way to Stanwyck's is a great opportunity to connect to the existing livelihood and activity that occurs further down along Penn and in the city. So that's a nice experience to be able to bring that amenity all the way down and carry that through for the connecting to the rest of the city environment. And then again, a rendering of what that corner is. And part of this, as we're developing it, we're including additional benches along the perimeter, and then creating that experience and connecting it to the Stanwyck's entrance. Again, bringing what was previously the restaurant on the second floor, bringing it down to the first floor, and again, activating that corner, being able to put operable partitions along this facade, and being able to come right out at the same level as the ground floor, and being able to carry that outside dining onto this outdoor area, onto this terrace. Materiality wise, we are introducing some granite pavers into the sidewalk at the entrances. I will note that this paving along here will be the standard city exposed aggregate granite, and that the new paving will be focused on the entrances as we indicated previously, just at the entrance areas with the granite pavers. I think that is an overview of the project. Currently in our process, we just recently on Tuesday completed our design review process. We presented in front of the CDAP panel, got some great positive feedback from them and their approval to move forward to the next step. We do have planned, we are in the agenda for a hearing with the Planning Commission on November 10th and then our action meeting on November 24th. We're currently on the agenda for those meetings. And obviously in the process, we've already gone through urban design targets with the rest of the zoning department. So, team, if there's Highmark or if 87 team has any other comments or anything to add, and then if not, we'll open up for questions.
Looks great. So Caitlin, do you have any questions?
Thanks, team, for going over that. This is great to see something like this happen. You know, downtown we have a lot of grand office buildings like this with a ton of space in their public plaza. But what I see a lot is sometimes we're just missing those like softening green elements. So that was one of the things that I was really happy to see you guys talk about at the beginning was, you know, preserving the plantings that are there, taking an inventory and you know, kind of enhancing and adding more. I think that'll be really important for this project. And also really like how you're opening up that transparency from the curb line to the facade. I think anytime we can see more transparency, bringing the outside in and vice versa, that's a definite win. So really glad to see that. I did have a question about the corner at Sandwich and Penn, which I think is great. I mean, that's always been one of those spaces that's always felt a little bit dead. So I think having you know, the landscaping elements added here and then that restaurant activation will, like you said, sort of bring down that vibe that you see on Penn Avenue into this corner. I think that's really, really needed. So for the second floor windows, I can see the diagram here. Are those windows, is that going to be something that will open up? So it'll be like a more open air thing, or will they be stationary? Because I wasn't sure how it was outlined here.
Yep. So they will be stationary. We did consider trying to open those up and have them be Juliet balconies, but because of the performance of the building and its location, and with the you know, sort of from street smells and with cars and everything, it was not going to be a good solution from a technical standpoint for the HVAC system. So we had to eliminate that. So those will be fixed windows. But again, sort of we're going to be replacing those and opening those up from, you know, as with new windows, not opening them up literally, but, you know, kind of putting new windows there.
Got you. And then this is a little more of a question on the interior part of the renovations that I know are planned. Is the food hall concept still going to remain on that second floor, or is the main restaurant use just going to be the one that will be at the corner of Stanwix and Penn?
Currently, we are still working through the renovation and the program and development of all of those. So yes, we're kind of working through that as well.
Right.
But the goal is to renovate both floors.
Makes sense. Okay, yeah, I think that's everything I have for the PDP side.
Derek, did you have any questions?
I don't think so. I think you covered over there.
Okay. Well, I think that ends our meeting this evening. We will provide the PDP with a recording of this, and they put them on their website within minutes. So thanks everyone for your time. Anyone have any questions for the city before we end this? No? Okay. Enjoy your evening.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Okay.